we're going to be spending the next 45 minutes together with Mitch Kirby, a strategist with Powerlight Technologies, Benoit Gaussen, a KM technology consultant with Enterprise Knowledge, and Mike Gilger, the CTO of Modus Operandi. And so we are going to be spending, again, the next 45 minutes together. They're going to be going over strategizing and implementing the KM growth of a DoD technology supplier. So please give them a warm welcome, and hope you enjoy.
All right. So I'll get this one started. I work for Powerlight Technologies. We are a tech startup out of the Seattle area. So foundation, what we do is we build hardware. What that hardware does is delivers power wirelessly. So we build laser systems. We shine them at PV cells, rebuilt mics. All right, I'll just hold it closer. Is that better? All right. So to be quick, yeah, we got the mic game. So. Yeah, we build laser power delivery systems. So you take a high-powered laser, you shine it at a solar cell. You can send kilowatts of power, kilometer distances. So there's 30 of us, and we use this dual space technology. So a lot of it's funded by the DoD, but we're also working to commercialize and deliver power to various, telecom industry, drones, etc. So Powerlight, I joined the company when there were 10 people or so, and we were moving quick from, hey, we can all talk, build this thing, throw it in the field, iterate, into, well, now we've got multiple projects, there's 30 people and beyond, and we started trying to figure out how can we make the most of what we're doing, teams working in different places, pulling that back, share the info. And we had all sorts of issues, so internal communication, working with vendors, trying to actually share technology that they're building in ways that are a little different from what vendors had done in the past. And then start to bring in different tools and practices internally to kind of be intentional about this. So, one of the things we started working on, a couple of us, we had to figure out how can we address the real issues, how do we prioritize what our problems are? So in that engineering space, we've got a design team that's got their software, their CAD software on one screen, they 3D print, we test, break, run it back, do it all quickly. We're iterating on the week-to-week time scale. So there's not a lot of software that we found that was available to sort of fit that need. And ultimately everything we do, because it's funded by various DoD projects, we've got big compliance regulation check marks to hit. So, we wanted to look at how can we be quick, design quick, and make sure we're compliant, and set us up to start taking advantage of different AI tools, generative AI, and pull that all together. So again, we've got to be NIST 800-171 compliant. So there's the CMMC, the Cyber Maturity Model Certification. There are all sorts of acronyms, but we got to be compliant, operational, and quick. And at the end of the day, we got to know where all of our data is, the stuff we're collecting in-house, and when we're integrating with systems in the field, we got to make sure we know where all that data is going to. So we got to track information across the entire life cycle, and be able to work again with engineers in different locations. Everything from in the field to sort of the coding dungeon late at night, working from home. And pull it all operationally back into somewhere where we all are working on the same thing. So we started looking at software stack. We quickly realized we're on Microsoft. That has that government GCC high, government community cloud high. So that allows us to store various levels of DoD information. And then we have this Arena. It's on AWS GovCloud. It's another government-approved service. And then GitHub for coding. And then we got to be intentional with, we can use Slack and other tools, and we just have to be careful with how that information is broken up in the different systems. So this whole thing was swirling. There was a couple of us working on it. And this is kind of what brought us Powerlight to enterprise knowledge. Really looking to see how we can make the most of our know-how within those government sort of guardrails, which I think I can pass off here to Benoit.
Thanks, Mitch. Enterprise knowledge, really at a glance, we don't have lasers, but we're still pretty cool, I think. At least we try. Really quickly, we have 80 consultants expert in KM, all doing all thing KM from the early stage strategy to the implementation of the technical tools, many of them that you see in the exhibition hall. Helping company of all type, from the really small tech-focused startup like Powerlight Technology up to the Walmart on the planet. If you don't know us, come check our booth, go on our website. We have the largest freely accessible knowledge base on the planet with all thing KM, data management, information management. It's pretty cool. Yeah, happy to chat if you want to know more how we can help you, but really let's dive in right now into the approach that we crafted with Mitch to help Powerlight Technology. I think being more intentional, and Mitch used this word a couple of times. This is all the more important here since PLT is a small company that have a really exponential growth ahead. So we not only wanted to tell them which step to take, but really most importantly, why they should take it, and really enable them with continuous knowledge transfer so they can then scale what we've done today to the future operation as the company grows. So the main problem, as Mitch said, first one, people did not know where to find information in the company and sometimes within their own projects. And also sometimes they didn't even know the information existed. So you have duplicates, you're losing time, really that could be better used somewhere else. And also the content operations were not efficient at all. There was a lack of standardization across the board, both in processes, but also how you chat about the stuff that you're creating. They create cutting-edge technology, really cool stuff, but they also have to create the labels that come to it. And how are you sure that the technical folks are going to have the same understanding as maybe the marketing folks in the company? So that was a real challenge. So we started our engagement by assessing the state of the organization, both on the SharePoint side. As Mitch said, they were heavily relying on SharePoint, which is accessible to them, so it was a good place to start, as well as the organizational processes. How is the information flowing between different persons, different employees, but also between different systems. And we decided that the really good step to start with was creating a foundational information architecture for the company. So really looking at developing new content types with new wireframes. So really, so the content could be input and it could be put in the system in a much more efficient way, and also could be stored in newly designed sites and library that would improve the storage and really streamline the content management. On top of that, we started to use small taxonomies and additional metadata to really prove that by correctly labeling the content and really making this small step, this could enhance drastically collaboration and information findability within, in that case, a very small business unit and for a specific project. So really proving things out. And right now, we're on a always evolving journey. We're really at a stage where we are looking to scale, and so make this available to other divisions within Powerlight Technology to have really a cohesive and personalized strategy at scale within the organization, and also starting to design taxonomy that is reaching out all through all departments and that is properly governed. So then again, we can have better findability and everyone will use the same term, hopefully, to talk about the same things. And we're also talking about the end game, which is, I think, in a couple of years, about the semantic layer, to have the ultimate goal of interoperability of the data, both inside Powerlight technology, but also outside. How do you sell your data to your client, your supplier? How do you use the same standards as the whole supply chain? That's a very important thing. And obviously, there is the technology component that Mitch mentioned. It's really a nightmare, and I think he has a couple of stories about SharePoint and Copilot right after that. But it's also all the processes and everything that you can really control that is outside the pure technology procurement. And we really wanted to focus on that to make sure that the project would actually start today, make SharePoint less painful for people today, while really having a long-term value and preparing the organization for the next step. And everything allowed us to also stay within the compliance restriction that the DoD is putting on a company like Powerlight. Want to share a story about SharePoint?
Yeah. So when we started working with enterprise knowledge, we had 1 to 2 year project we were looking down, and this is to deliver a hardware product. So we started saying, hey, how are we going to make this happen? Again, we got to test, talk to people, break stuff, run it back, work with our suppliers, be able to actually have documentation for version control when we have maybe 3 or 4 versions out on the test bench. And then be able to plug all that into the planning of what are we doing, why we're doing it, why was that decision made at that time, and really start creating that loop within the team and do it all, again, within those guardrails of what software we could actually use. So one of the things when I started in this space was exploring a software. Wow, that sounds so cool. Can we use it? Like, no, not within the DoD. Like, oh, how about that one? No, you can't use that one either. So we tried all sorts of things and came back to SharePoint and are now trying to just get the team all working within that SharePoint environment to at the very least start organizing our data in a consistent way so that when other tools become available, we can start exploring. And we also are seeing what happens with SharePoint and Microsoft. So the way we attacked this was starting with the engineers. Again, how are you working? What are you doing? We kind of had this flow that led into building that intranet page site where the engineering team goes to a single place. They have all of their data and, their tasks in this task tracker tool, which is just a Power App built on a list. So we can keep track of who did what when and export it if needed. And then, starting to put that up on screen so people walk in the building and we all know who's working on what when. And then linking within that tool to the documents. So slowly starting to integrate that taxonomy, which includes things like acronym definitions and just tags, and really starting to get the culture changed around this. That's been a big effort in training engineers to do things a little different, particularly with documentation, is no small task. So, trying to make it easy. If you're going to slow someone down, they're not going to touch it. So being intentional with, this is already open at your workbench. Use the tool. And then the data's there when we all have our meeting on Friday. So this has kind of allowed us to give that one-stop shop. And this last bullet point, Benoit alluded to it a bit. There were so many times where, working with EK or even just watching videos online, we were trying to set something up in SharePoint where I had a screenshot of what options I thought were going to be available, and on our GCC high environment, it just wasn't there. That toggle wasn't there, or we put in a web part and all of a sudden it didn't work. And you reach out to Microsoft, and we had this communication back and forth where it was often unclear what we could actually do on that GCC high environment. So it really kind of brought us back to the foundations of let's just work together, talk about it, make sure it's there, and not rely on the tooling as much. So I think we're starting to make progress, and a big part of this as well is since we've started 3 other projects, and we've been able to just roll this over. So engineers that are on one group can jump to the next group, and they're seeing it the same way. So they already know how to use the tool. So we finding that's been really helpful.
The AI slide. I know you were waiting for that. And I know when we're creating starting putting some idea for this deck, I think it was a couple of months ago now. Mitch told me, oh yeah, I don't have Copilot now, but I will have it by the time of the conference, and I will try to talk about that, and he doesn't. So, so we're talking about other things and really go back to the foundational aspect. But here again, the bottom line is they were promised Copilot in February, where in November still nothing. And the problem is you can just follow up, and they're not gonna reply to you. So. Or they're going to lie to you, which is maybe even worse. So really the whole trigger for the initiative and why Paralight came to us is, we want to integrate AI technology when it's going to be available. And really discussing with the different team at Paralight and really looking at the things that we could not control, which is availability of the technology, how long a new software is going to be vetted or not. We decided to go back to the foundations and really prepare the content of the company for this future AI applications. And we positioned the content and we did that work around 3 pillars that we at EK think are really crucial. If you have any in mind, happy to chat to discuss about it, but I'll start with the content quality. Having clear, concise, and direct content. So when you're going to apply some models to do like some model training, or also even to use and reuse the content, it is extremely important to have quality in the content you're using. Think of 15 or 20 different versions of the same document, or maybe with one sentence changing, who's using what. And when you have a model or even someone looking at the system, which one should I use today? Should I keep all of them because they all reflect the modification of the new technology that we're developing, or is it just garbage and I should just get rid of 14 of them and keep one? That's really the key question here. The second bullet here is the content structure. And actually, I should say really semantically meaningful content structure. And that's actually good that we talk about that, because I know that Mike is gonna have a lot of his presentation around this topic. About breaking down the content in pieces that actually make sense and not the default one. Let me explain. A PDF, you have a 10 pages PDF. Usually it has 10 components, which is page 1, page 2, page 3 until page 10, which doesn't make more sense if you have a paragraph that is over 2 or 3 pages. A machine is going to look at that and it's going to say, okay, so I have to pull 2 or 3 contents to answer the request, the query that the user made, which is not really helpful. It's just going to get messy, and it's the accuracy of the search in that case is not going to be great. Instead, we really restructure the content so they would be clearly defined sections that would talk about technical drawings, technical specification. This is the part where the marketing blurb is inserted. So then the machines and also your users would know where to find what, and when they look at something specific, the system can narrow it down to the most precise and most concise piece that the user needed to do their job or what they were actually looking for. And the last one is the metadata enrichment, preparing the content and the processes to enrich its content with taxonomies, so labeling the content and also its component individually, so you know exactly where is what in the document, but also the relationship between all these components. So then if you're talking about a technology A, and maybe the system is going to know that this subsection relates to another project as well, can pull this to really provide context, which is in those systems the ultimate goal, really provide what the user need and maybe they're not aware of, and that's really the holy grail for this KM system and AI application. But again, Mike is going to do a great job at talking more about this right after that. Conclusion slide, we touched on all these points, but really that's our 4 key takeaways that Mitch and I want to share with you. The first one is just implement in an agile manner, really prioritize a very, very specific use case in a very specific business unit. So you can ensure that things are going to move forward. It's going to be incremental steps, but at least the project won't stall. If you want to change everything at once, it's not going to work. The second thing is focus on the content readability for all. If you do all the steps in a proper way that I mentioned in the previous slide about the structure, about the quality, and providing the right context around the content, those are best practice that would ensure that the content will be understood and be able to be read by humans, application, and also AI, advanced AI application in the future. So that's really a win for everyone here, and this is really back to the basics. The third one, and Mitch talked about that, never underestimate, if you're working in a DoD restricted environment, never underestimate the pain that it will be to implement technology or to rely on some publicly available version. I think it was Power Automate in SharePoint. Mitch, no button. So what do you do? And this is exactly what you need to really consider this. And most importantly, do not build your project solely on the technology and the promised feature. Otherwise, you're going to have a very bad surprise at the end. And the last one, again, don't reinvent the wheel. Best practices have been here for ages. Practitioners have been using those content best practice, those data best practice across industries, across different sizes of companies for a reason, because this is always things that you will be able to build on, and then just do the preparation. So then when everything is ready, when the technology can be implemented, you're not going to have any delays. And in the meantime, the users of the system are going to really thank you because you're going to make their life easier. That was about it. I think we'll take question at the end. Mike, you want to take the mic?
Thank you. So I speak with my hands. One of my hands is holding something, so you're only going to get half the talk today, so sorry. Anyway, coming through here, knowledge-driven Air Force collaborative ecosystem empowering airmen. That was them, not me. That's pretty cool. But I was like, wow, that's really a cool way to show it. But it's really interesting. And I'm going to start off with something that's going to kind of be shocking to you. Why do you care about the OODA loop? Well, OODA is a cool name. I mean, you got to admit it, right? But nonetheless, the concept is observe, orient, decide, and act. When I'm going through the OODA loop, the whole concept is, let me take in the information. What do I know? What are my capabilities? Orient. Determine how I can apply these capabilities based on the information that's out there. Come over, I create my hypothesis, I determine what I want to do, and then I act on it, right? I try it out, and if it doesn't work as great as I was hoping, I need to redo it again and try to improve that whole process. So this is something the military lives by, right? I need to do this as quickly as possible, because if I don't, you get this. You never want your adversary's OODA loop to be inside yours, because it means they can respond faster, they can react quicker, and they can adjust fires, and all of a sudden you're dealing with something you don't know and doesn't work with your TTPs, right? So, rush on the outside, Ukraine on the inside, you can see what happens, right? So, yeah, keep that in mind. We want our OODA loop to be ultra fast, and what was blocking it was the Air Force was not knowledge minded at the time. They were dealing with content management, a lot of PDFs, no thought process about how all that information that they're generating could actually be usable by the airmen. How do we get it out there? How do we do something about it? So their concern is make that go faster, because today that's a 2-year rewrite cycle on our tactics, techniques, and procedures. Tactics, techniques, and procedures are coming down into the act, right? We have to learn all that, get it in the TTP so that airman who's flying the appropriate weapon can go ahead and act on it appropriately, know how to respond, and win. Pretty important, right? So the Air Force came back and says, well, here are the problems. Here are why I can't get there quickly, right? It takes me too long for a TTP update. Again, tactics, techniques, and procedures. Heavily vetted document. Takes tremendous amounts of time to put together, vet, and get into the system. They want improved search and TTP usability. Today, the user has a bunch of PDF documents, right? If they're going to fly a mission, say I'm in F-35, I'm going to be going with an F-16, that's 2 PDFs I have to download and go work through and say, okay, how does this fit into my mission to make sure I'm going to fly the best, most successful mission, right? We need to improve that capability because that's just terrible. Continues to capture user feedback. your folks who are using the TTPs are the ultimate experts. They fly it, right? They work it, they do it. So wouldn't you want to be able to grab that input and pull it back into your system as quickly as possible? Because what does that do? Shorten the OODA loop. They're the ones flying it. They know. Get it back to the editor so we can get it in the system, get it approved, and get it back out there. And then finally, something you brought up, reduce the duplication. There are a lot of elements within the TTPs that are the same. And if I make a change to that core element, what are they doing? They're updating 17 other documents because they have that exact same information in there. And the last thing they want is multiple versions of the truth, right? Pretty critical. So how do we get through this? Down below is the before, right? Very manual process. They do an exercise. They have their static TTPs they're looking at, right, and viewing through there. The TTP users use it. They come back and says, oh, this sucks. This didn't work at all, right? So they create the after-action reports. The after-action reports go to analysts, and they say, this part here might really impact the TTP. Great. Put it into the backlog. That feeds the improvement process. So every 2 years, I come back, and I apologize for the text. We did a transfer last minute. They don't have the font. They do the rewrite cycle. The SMEs and reviewers rewrite the document based on the input that they hope to capture. Sometimes they wrote it on a napkin and didn't get here. That's another story, right? They review it, they refine it, they produce it, and they disseminate, right? Disseminate is a matter of sending the static PDF out to your users and hope that they pick it up and use it. Not a very good process. The new and improved process up at the top, right? I do my mission exercise. The TTPs are being used by those airmen directly on, well, I'm not going to age myself and call them PDAs, but they're on tablets, right, or some other element that they have in their environment. They're looking at this, they go, okay, great, this didn't work right. Or you know what, we've had discussions and we've practiced this several times. We realized if I do this one element, I can actually impact a change there that I think would improve our ability to be more accurate on that targeting or whatever, right? Great. They make that suggestion directly in the TTP. It's live, it's active, I can see it, right? And I go on to make a note on there. That'll kick off a workflow process, automated, right, in the background, sends it into the digital TTP as a potential change. You have, in fact, I'm going to show you a process in a minute that highlights this a little bit nicer. But there's a workflow that manages. The SME are interacting with this all the time. So instead of waiting for a quote-unquote rewrite cycle, right, the document is continuously being updated based on the input coming in from their users. That's critical, right? That allows us to respond and respond very quickly. So, first part, how do I improve the search and the TTP usability? A couple of things there. Obviously, I now give them the ability to search across documents. Today, they have their TTPs, they do a desktop search. They think they found the element they want, they open up that TTP. What do they do next? They do the search again inside the document to find the element that they are hoping to find that they saw on the outside. The change now is I do my search and it searches across all TTPs, and they can actually limit the list that they want to go to specific weapon systems or types or aspects, so that now they can get related information in the search result right away. It just comes right up, right? It is so much different than what they've dealt with before. They're just like, wow. I get the related information. It'll say, hey, by the way, you're doing refueling and we have these sort of jets that are available, but you know, you might want to look at this one too, because it can support that mission type. Wow, thank you. I didn't have to do that lookup. Or, more importantly, information was fed to me, right, when I'm in my most receptive mode. So, hey, I'll take it, right? That's that whole semantic linking element. And then the semantic tags, really cool, really simple, right? Aircraft, fighter, bomber. Underneath fighter, I've got F-16, F-35, et cetera, right? So if I'm searching, I say, hey, I want to limit my document types to, say, F-16. Pull my results back, make it very focused. Or, you know what? It's across all the fighters. I'm not sure which one. So I just go ahead and say I want to search on fighters. The system knows to expand that in the background, that all those other elements, the F-16, the F-35, the F-15, are all part of fighter. You get it for free, right? And the user thinks hierarchically, so it fits really nicely into the way they think about information. So dynamic content, the improvement of the TTP, now that it's electronic and live, I can put videos in there, I can put sound bites in there, I can put interactive 3D visualizations that they get to maneuver and look at live, right? Wow, that's a vast improvement than a static image on a PDF, right? Some of the other elements that we do, though, is this little thing up at the top here. You see that little black circle with the eye in there? We call those info icons. So instead of having a footnote, which I'm sure you all know and love, right? You scroll down to the footnote to find out where it is. Some people put it at the end of the page. Some people put it at the end of the document. This is electronic, guys. Why are we doing that still? It puts it right there so they can hover over and instantly get what they want. If it's a link, they can go right to the link. Same type of thing, though. I have a figure 4 or a table or a citation. They can hover over that and instantly see it, but they can also click and go directly to that full image inside the document. Why wouldn't we do this, guys? I mean, we should have been doing this years ago, frankly, as soon as we created an electronic document. So now, imagine that guy, he's flying something. He needs to look up the refueling tables for different type of aircraft. I can hover over my box over here, and I can see the table without having to scroll. Because scrolling in a document, as you know, is tedious, time-consuming, and really frustrating for a user. Get rid of it, right? So this is just some of the things that help improve that access. Back to that other thing I talked about. He's got his little tablet there. He says, hey, we just did this. This will really help improve things. I can, increase our reaction time by 30%. These slides, by the way, are available. You guys can download them directly. He makes a comment on the TTP instantaneously. The gatekeeper, we like to call him. Actually, there's another word they use, so I won't use here. But the gatekeeper takes a look at it and says, hey, this is totally ridiculous. You just don't know what we're doing here. Or, oh, wow, this is absolutely reasonable. I want to go ahead and send this to the process because there's a cost to that, right? So you want the SMEs, you want the experts in that process going through it. He goes ahead and says, good, let's do this. Automatically starts up the workflow process. They go in there and it starts going through there and saying, okay, what level of change in this? Who needs to be in the review cycle? What kind of engineering changes do I need to the documentation, et cetera? But what am I updating? I'm updating a knowledge graph. Why is that important? I'll tell you that in a little bit. As soon as they go ahead and do those changes, the very next time they request the TTP, what do they get? The absolute latest and greatest TTP, always up to date, always in context, right? Pretty critical. And then finally, the little surprise. You're going to see something here that I don't think you've seen before. Reduce duplication. What the heck do we mean by that, right? Well, you've given the element. I want to go ahead and reuse material where I can, right? That's great. How do we store information in our content management systems? Even when we chunk it in a component content management system, we store it as a bag of words. Multiple paragraphs, images, whatever. There's that file. Store it in a system. This is criminal. We should not be doing that. That is blocking so much information. It is lying to our AI ML tools because it's blurring the information. We throw it into a vector database and think, isn't that brilliant? No, it's not. Because it might have broken up the paragraphs. It might have broken up between two paragraphs. You lose the context. What the AI do? It gets confused. Okay, let's not do that. So instead, why don't we take that document and break it out into this model here, right? This model has sections, paragraphs, images, support elements. It's all there, right? Wow, that's pretty detailed. Well, there was a driver for this actually initially. In the military, every single paragraph, every image, every header has what they call a CAPCO marking. It's your security marking. Secret, top secret, all that good stuff, right? Releasable to Five Eyes. It's not releasable at all to anybody foreign, right? They tell that within the document so you know how to use it. Today, when I store my bag of words, I have to go through that document, find the highest marking on there, and I mark the whole document as that. Even though there might be one paragraph that's top secret SCI, and all the rest of it is secret, no one sees all the secret stuff. Again, criminal, right? You should be able to see every bit of the secret stuff because you have absolute access to that. In the current systems today, you don't have access to it. It is blocked. Don't do that anymore, guys. This system here says I'm breaking it apart where I put my security marking at. Paragraph, header, table, image, right? I'm storing that information at that level, but I gain all kinds of benefits from that. And let's go and walk through that really quick. How much time we got? I don't see the timer. Thank you, good. So, here's our model, right? That's what we're storing in the system. There's no document per se. There's a document model that says this is how you reassemble that data back into a document. Okay, so let me go ahead and position that up there. It went right off the screen. That's interesting. That really bites. It's supposed to be over the model. Something happened when we transferred it. My apologies tremendously. But anyway, It's using the table of content model that we see right here, and it's actually picking out various paragraphs in the model to go ahead and display a table of contents. It's just a query to the system. Further, when I want to go ahead and look at the content of it itself, again, you can see that maps here, the section 3 paragraph, section 3 the paragraph appropriate, 3.1 paragraph, etc. You know, so you can see how it's formulating. There's actually an image over here so that actually forms that up. But as you can see, the documents are, in essence, dynamically constructed on the fly. So what does that mean? If I have Capco issues, and you're not allowed to see that individual paragraph, what does the document do? Creates it as though that paragraph never existed. Wow. I can also do that with any kind of security marking, any kind of relationship marking, etc. So you can see the power of that is really amazing. Unfortunately, it's going to, oh, this one worked. Because it didn't move the model. So this one is actually doing a search. It says, I'm looking for specifically, you know, the facilities, the locations, you know, the date, and then information about it, right? So it's just querying the knowledge model that you've created. And even though I built this as a document, which you well know and love and feel, right? The system gave me a totally different view of that information and went across documents to generate it. But it could actually be limited to a single document. It is your choice. Let's do it again, but this time, it's not going to, well, it is going to move right. Look at that. So I have a story map model. The military actually had this thing where they're developing these 800-page long documents, and they say, well, show it on a map because that's better for the folks that actually need to use information. So they did this Herculean effort of copying and pasting, creating multiple versions of the truth. How evil is that? To go ahead and create their what they call story map, right? Well, in this world, we just do a query, he says. There it goes. And it populates the story map with the exact data. No duplication, none whatsoever, right? That's critical. That is this is the ultimate in knowledge management, and I'll show you why in just a second because we'll get even better. Oh, sorry. Just walk through this really quick. So now, imagine, as you can see, I went ahead and generated a couple reviews against the sections. Instantly, I can see I've got that icon up there that tells me very quickly, oh, something's going on with my object. I don't care how it's presented, right? It's actually going to show me no matter what the view angle or what I'm doing, what kind of search it is, I can instantly see when things are going on about my data, right? Now, let's go a little bit further than that. If I didn't have a visualization, right, shows up the same way. I'm only using that one, so there it is. But now let's come up a little bit different. My source change. So that's a critical element. The military always wants to know when their source changes because that needs update of the knowledge itself, right? So what ends up happening is even if I had these already visualized, that alert is pushed through the system and instantly anywhere where that information is displayed, you see the alert. So you see the level of information that tends to compound on top of itself because you've now structured the data down to its atomic forms. So this on here is basically what the knowledge model looks like underneath the covers. Those are the individual paragraphs. If this was live, this is actually a screenshot, but if this was live, you could actually click on that and zoom it up, or you can click on the paragraph and it would highlight it down there. They're the same thing. I'm showing you 3 different views of the same data. The table of contents is dynamic. It's just a query of the system, right? It's querying for the leaf nodes, right? The document is a view of this in the document format that we all know and love and are comfortable with. And this is the view of how it actually looks like in the knowledge tree, right? This shows that I have comments that have been associated with specific elements within the document. So now you can see the links and relationships actually get built upon the top of it. So a couple little things here, the content reuse. This model is for that document. This model is for this document. This model is for this document. I want to reuse that piece of information. How do you do that today? Copy paste. Multiple versions of the truth. In this world, it actually goes ahead and creates a link directly to that piece of knowledge you want to share. This document does the same thing. So what would happen if I actually changed that? The other 2 documents are automatically up to date because it's not a copy of the data. It's actually the live data that it's pointing to. That's really critical on where you can actually go with that. Now let's take it one step further. I changed my source data. Because this is all in the knowledge graph, I can actually come back there and say, hey, these 2 documents are using this. Let me find their owners, because I have that information too, right? Part of the metadata. I can tag them and say, By the way, your data changed that you're referencing inside your document. This is knowledge management on a whole new level, guys. This is huge. You can't do this today. Not with a lot of wishful thinking, anyway. So finally, one little thing I want to pull up here is the dynamic document. What is that? So I'm a user, like I fly the KC-135, and I want to understand all types of cargo that I can carry in that thing. Well, I've got numerous TTPs I might have to use, but for a specific mission type, I probably only need 4 paragraphs out of 3 different documents. Well, they go through there, they go into the document, they create tags against those elements that they want, and they say, hey, create me a document with those elements. This document is actually formulated on the fly, cross documents, doesn't care, right? It loads these paragraphs up from that knowledge store, and now you have your cheat sheet that is always up to date. So I can go ahead, mission type X, click, boom. That's my cheat sheet. I know it's always up to date, right? Because it's looking at the live data. There's no copies involved on this element. So, benefits. It was huge for them, right? Transferring static documents into interconnected knowledge, that's the utopia for any type of knowledge system, right? End users are able to contribute their insights. That is so freaking critical. How many people within your organization probably have a good idea, but have no way of getting it up through the chain, right? That is really, really important. The collaboration, change management, information access, all workflow driven, knowledge world, right? And then finally, empowers airmen to make faster, more informed decisions in, really important, complex and high-stake environments. They got to think fast. They don't have time to wait. So, based on that, I want to go ahead and jump into questions. We don't really have, we should create a neutral one, but yeah. So what was the first part of the question? Okay, so it's using an RDF graph on the back end, right, which most people would expect, although you could obviously use a full graph, but it's not as well defined in the way we create relationships and such. So the RDF graph on the back end is what's loaded, right? We have ontologies that have been defined that go ahead and articulate how it needs to be broken apart. Then we have these document converters that'll take, actually, part of the Air Force's process that they're doing today, right, actually uses Word that then translates into Adobe FrameMaker, and then they export that to PDF. So we actually took their FrameMaker, exported it to HTML because it created the most accurate representation with styles still in the document, and pushed that into the knowledge graph. I call the knowledge graph the RDF store, which has a whole object layer over the top of it. Does that make sense? Okay. So that document converter is what's doing the dirty work of breaking it apart, ensuring that the look and feel is exactly the same, but preserving all the context and everything that the document has so that the knowledge base is starting off pretty ripe. Good.
There was one in the back, yeah.
Unfortunately, in our case, I have a utopia world in that these documents are highly vetted by the Air Force. I mean, highly vetted. We're talking about lives on the line, right? So we don't run into those problems because they're very accurate across TTP. So the one converter did a really great job. But to your point, we went to the LeMay Center, which creates Air Force doctrine, right? Very general. They have like 6 majors there all doing their own thing. And it says, make it look like this. But it didn't look like that at all. So the document converters themselves had to really do a lot of data wrangling to try to formulate and clean up the mess that they were creating to go ahead and pull it across. The information was accurate. The formatting wasn't, right? And so, yes, Word, by the way, has 3 different XML languages inside of it, And not only that, they're inconsistent in the way they apply it. We found out the hard way.
And I have something to add to that. One of our client, who's the largest European tech company with, again, very, very high technology processes and machines, they had the same problem. And because looking at the component sometime, they would realize that two people would talk for 30 minutes talking about a fluid when one was talking about water and the other one air. Because in the machine and document, it was a mention of fluid, which, if you work for different department, a machine or whatever, this, and if humans make this, it's almost certain that the machines will also make they would be confused and mix up the concept. So this is why having a very solid metadata environment, taxonomies, ontology, very specific domain models is highly important. So then, because the system would know that you're talking about this specific machine in this specific environment, then they would be able to infer that the fluid that you're talking about is actually either water or air because of the context. So the component in itself doesn't mention it, but the system will be able to just pick the context around it to then provide the best answer.
That too. How many of you use acronyms? Everybody. How many use acronyms that mean the same thing, or two different acronyms but the same words in the same document? Okay, fewer, right? In the Air Force, that happens a whole lot more than you think. In this system, when they go in and they find the acronyms, they actually define what acronym it actually means. It goes to a centralized data component within the knowledge store, so that when I hover over it, it makes sure the user knows which one you're talking about, but more importantly, it gives context to the AI engine, so it knows exactly what you're talking about here, and there is no confusion.
And this is why there's multiple versions of the truth, actually. There could be one content that mean different things for different departments, which is also true. We talked to someone recently, they say in the agency, they have the RIS, for one of them it's Revenue Information System, for the other one it's a Russian intelligence system. So you can understand when two departments are talking about like the RIS, it's important to know which one understand what and really push the right acronym to the right folks depending on the department, the project they're working on, etc. So again, context is key here.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Can we show them some love?